Anyway, I was looking around my room when I found my flash drive. Chaotic dug around his flank pocket. Luna didn't really question how ponies could have hidden pockets where their cutie marks were at, and brought out a small, thin storage unit for data. I was thinking that maybe we could play Slender in place of telling horror stories. You don't want to tell the horror stories? Luna asked. Well, I still want to, but maybe we could do that after this. Truthfully, I've been waiting for a night like this to show you this game. Have you ever played it before? I'm afraid I have not. What is it about? Oh, it's a fairly simple game. Chaotic inserted the flash drive into Luna's personal computer and turned it on. All you have to do is go around a forest and collect 8 pages. Once you get them all, you win. Well, that doesn't really sound like fun, Luna commented. Trust me, Luna. This game is anything but boring, Chaotic confidently claimed. Chaotic, what are you doing? Luna's about to start. While Luna was setting up the game on the computer, Chaotic had pulled Red aside for a bit. Honestly, the Pegasus had no idea what the brash unicorn's motives are all the time. Usually, it would be as something totally innocent, like free ice cream, or to undermine the secret coup among the nobles. When Luna said he should try to understand Chaotic, it was pretty much just literally easier said than done. Understand a stallion whose name literally means chaos. Pretty sketchy, if you ask Red about that. Well, Red, I have an idea. It's a devious idea. Chaotic innocently smiled. Red's scowl grew even deeper. What do you have in mind? Well, I was thinking that we should tease Luna while she's playing the... Insult her? Why the buck would I do that? He harshly whispered, interrupting Chaotic. Look, I don't know what the buck you're trying to pull, but if you do so much as hurt Luna's feelings. He couldn't finish the sentence, however, as he found Chaotic's hoof over his mouth. Dude, hear me out for a moment. I didn't mean to insult Luna. I meant that we should tease her little things. You know, like tap her shoulder when she isn't looking, point at things at the screen while pretending something's there. Red's eyes narrowed even further. Is there something you're not telling me? Yes and no. Slender is a first-person horror game where you have to survive long enough to collect all 8 pages. Suddenly blushing deep red, Chaotic nervously started fiddling with his forehooves together like he was having second thoughts. I was thinking we can use this as an opportunity to get closer with Luna. You know, because the scare factors might cause her to depend on us for comfort. And you really think that... Wait, did you say we? Yes. Don't you like Luna too? Red's eyes widened at this. He didn't think Chaotic was the most sharp of the stallions. In fact, Red had met his fair share of stallions that were not so bright in the head. They were mostly down at the pubs he went to when he was out drinking with his fellow guards, all dazed up in their drunken state. The Pegasus really wasn't all that for drinking. He just went there as the responsible guy to make sure all of his teammates got home safely. Alcohol could put you in quite the doozy mood, and sometimes it would make you do stupid things like pick a fight with the royal guards. However, Chaotic was keen enough to realize Red had feelings for Luna as well. He thought he hit it well enough, unlike the unicorn across from him. It looked like he was just proven wrong tonight, in not just one case, but 2 as well. Red had also thought Chaotic wasn't really the sharing type when it came to having a special sun pony. But here he was asking him if he wanted to partake in the bonding exercise that the unicorn had in mind. It was thoughtful, it was generous, and it was brilliant to Red. You know what? I think I'm starting to like you, Red smirked. Chaotic simply returned the grin. Let's see if Luna's done installing. So, this is the game? Luna asked, looking at the dark blank screen on the computer, while sitting comfortably in her seat. She stared at the title of the game before pressing the start button. She couldn't really remember why, but the name Slender tripped a bell in her memory. But it was a weak ring. While there were no visuals just yet, the Night Princess could hear some pony in the computer breathing heavily. The being's voice sounded feminine as she climbed over what seemed to be fences. Suddenly, the screen was lit up brightly from what was implied to be a flashlight, revealing the forest in front of her. The forest was incredibly dense and very daunting in a hazardous way. Luckily, Luna was placed on a path wide enough so that she didn't feel claustrophobic in the trees. When she walked around in the dim area, she could hear the leaves crunching underneath her like crispy hay chips. Her character's steps sounded like hooves, as a faint clop could be heard every time she moved. So Luna assumed she must be playing a mare, since stallions let out much bigger sounding steps. Yes, all you need to do is walk around and collect all 8 pages, scattered around the forest, Chaotic confirmed, flashing a light grin at her. He and Red were looking over her shoulder, with the Pegasus being the only other seat in the room. There are around some landmarks around here, so it'll be easy to find them. Luna, already suspicious of the game, hummed with doubt at the game's apparent simplicity. The time setting in the game was nighttime. The trees were looking a bit more than grim, and her character was seemingly only equipped with a flashlight. The only company she had in the game was the little crickets that were chirping in the background. The growing feeling inside of her was convincing her even more that there was more to this than meets the eye in this game. All the signs that were screaming in her face were shouting out the now obvious fact that this was a horror game. Now that I think about it, Chaotic did want me to play this instead of telling horror stories. I can see why he left out the nature of this game. Luna allowed herself a tiny laugh. Very well. I shall humor him then. Let's just hope he doesn't chicken out while watching me play. Luna entertained herself with that thought of Chaotic screaming at whatever horror awaited them in the game. She knew he had a light heart when it came to scary games, even though he had made himself to be a hardcore gamer sometimes. But in reality, he's just a lovable softie. Red was more likely to be surprised once whatever mystery entity in the game popped out, but he'll then learn to keep himself calm afterwards. Suddenly, Luna found herself being pressed up by the pair of stallions on either side of her. They weren't being forceful, but they were more like leaning on her actually. It was actually quite comforting to her. At least she had 2 of her friends, who thought Luna more than friends, besides her, in the middle of the night while playing what might possibly be a really scary game. Already the darkness surrounding her was getting to her, but Chaotic and Red had lightened up the experience, giving her reason to be in her comfort zone. Soon, after fumbling around in the darkness, she found a broken down wagon in the middle of the dirt road. Looking at the sides of it, she could see a note taped to its wooden planks. There was a scribbled message upon it, as if a foal had hastily written a note on it, as if it was a homework assignment the little student had forgotten to do at the last moment. Don't look, or it takes you, Luna read out loud. Well, that doesn't sound good, she mumbled. She could feel her left arm being hugged tightly. She peered to the left corner of her eye to see a very worried Chaotic, with his closed mouth quivering. Ah, look at him, Luna cooed inside of her mind. He's like a little colt now. She clicked on the page with the words of warning, storing the sheet inside whatever inventory she had for her character. Luna jumped a bit in her seat, out of shock, as the atmosphere of the game took a sudden turn around the corner, from slight caution to full-out mind-numbing tension. The music sounded like drums filled with thunder, and was seemingly consistent, as if something right now was starting to stalk her. She could imagine the leaves in the trees being rustled from the impending doom that she was lurking around in the woods. Luna could feel her heart in her throat, wanting to jump out to escape whatever horror was waiting for her. Her forehead beaded with cold sweat. It feels like some pony. Luna quickly spun her character around. Wants to sell me something. There was nothing there, except for the dark, widespread scenery of the trees. Luna let out a nervous giggle, as Red gave her a look that was asking her, what was that all about? Raising one of his eyebrows. Meanwhile, Chaotic was being a blender right now, as he was shivering violently out of fear from the sudden outburst Luna had. Luna, don't scare me like that, he whimpered. Sorry, Chaotic. Luna apologized, attempting to calm the poor stallion down by stroking his mane. Stroke after stroke, Chaotic slowly broke out of his distress and calmed down. I didn't mean to startle you like that. At this point, Luna was trying not to let out a snicker. At times like this, when Chaotic was being a little softy that he was, Luna felt that he was the little brother she never had. Of course, this little brother had a really warm attachment to her, so she couldn't really bring herself to think like that. On the other side, she could feel Red giving off a huge wave of jealousy. He must have felt left out of the attention Luna was giving to Chaotic. Smiling, she turned around and asked Red, Do you want a hug too? Red snapped out of his jealous state. What? Red bit his lips a little, his nerves feeling more or less hesitant. Sure. I would love to have a hug from you. He leaned towards her and wrapped his hooves around her. After sharing a few moments or two in the little group hug, Luna lightly brushed them off so she could focus on the game. Okay, let's win this, she said with absolute confidence. I'm really starting to regret playing this game, Luna harshly whispered. Right now, she currently had 7 pages in her hooves right now, and was currently running away from whatever was chasing her. So far, the monster's identity was still a mystery to her, but she could tell it was a tall, white, black, and very fast creature. Everything she looked behind her at, all she saw was a white flash in the distance, getting closer and closer with each second. She didn't look back for very long, as her screen would turn to static, so her primary focus now was on staying alive. But even then, she could still feel whatever appendages the monster had was hovering over her shoulder. In a metaphorical sense, of course, but it didn't stop Luna from being confused and a tiny bit afraid of whatever was out to kill her in the game. Luna, over there is the last page, Red shouted, jabbing his hoof to where the tall tree was on the screen. Luna immediately veered her mouse to the left to where the tree was, and in turn caused her character to face towards it. When she pressed down on the W key with her magic, and smashed shift to go full burst speed, her character went from a slow trot to a fast run, heading straight for the tree. 20 meters. The game scared her for a bit, but she was the princess of the night. After seeing the last page that she needed, she knew that the prize was just within her grasp. A full victory over the game. All she needed to do was to cover a few more meters and press the sweet mouse button to grab it, and hopefully win the game then. 15 meters. Oh, I just hope this game doesn't have a twist, Luna prayed. She had played enough games to know that the objectives would sometimes change, or something completely different. She hated it when that happened. 10 meters. Almost there, Chaotic squeaked. He had never been this far in the game, so now he was practically covering his eyes at this point to shield them from whatever horrible thing was going to pop out from the screen. 5 meters. And got it! Luna victoriously swept the page from the tree, finishing the game on her first try ever. She turned around to see if the monster was still after her, but there was not a sign of it anywhere. She turned around again, but the monster wasn't there either. Slowly, she started to realize that there was something wrong. That creepy feeling was crawling up her back again. Guys, is it just me, or did the music stop playing? Chaotic asked quietly. Without warning, a loud boom came from the computer, and Luna's character turned around on her own. Luna, shocked at this turn of events, tried to move the mouse, but found the game to be completely out of her control. Luna's eyes widened in surprise from what she saw on the screen. It was a pony, as tall as Celestia herself, white, and in a black, sharp business suit. A blood-red tie wrapped around the collar of his shirt. However, the most unforgettable feature was the full lack of features on its face. Its face was just a pure white void itself. Luna couldn't hear anything else other than the surprised screams coming from the two ponies beside her, and her own. While her ears were being abused by the stallion's terrified yells, Luna's mind was just swirling in thoughts of her own. What was she to feel at this point? Fear or nostalgia? The screen had flickered into static surrender, and then everything went dark. And so that's when Luna kicked us out of her room. Chaotic summed up. Really? Why would she do that? Alisa said. She was a snow-white unicorn mare with an adorable pink, fluffy, silky mane and tail that reminded Chaotic of Luna's previous style, and the most brilliant sea-blue eyes any pony had ever known. I don't know. She had a weird look in her eyes, and she didn't want to talk about it. All I know was that after me and Red stopped screaming, well, you know the rest. Chaotic drew tiny circles on the carpet rug beneath him with the tip of his hoof, embarrassed that he had to retell the story to some pony else. However, Alisa was a special case. She was the type of mare that would listen to a stallion, unlike most other mares out in Equestria. Most of them would just brush his voice off and would rather like to talk about themselves. He shuddered to think on how the mares here fit the stereotypes of how stallions would normally act back home in Magistrum. It seemed like the gender roles here were somehow reversed, almost like an Amazonian nation. The more naughtier mares of Manhattan, for example, liked to poke fun at stallions with blunt comments like hot flank or I'd tap that. Of course, he slightly expected that from a country where females make up the majority of its population. But it was just an amusing thought in the beginning. But Alisa was not like those Manhattan mares from the dark alleys. She was sweet and kind. Well, it's getting late. I need to catch up on some sleep. Alisa walked past Chaotic, flashing him a shy smile. I'll see you around. Yeah. Good night. Chaotic returned the smile with his. The stallion trotted through the hallway, making his way to his bedroom. It didn't take long to find it, as it was just a few meters from around the corner. Once he was inside, he crashed his body onto the bed and allowed the covers to hug him to sleep. It was a long night, and Chaotic was feeling quite tired from tonight's events. Hello? Chaotic nervously called out. Is any pony there? He was quite in a sour pickle now. He didn't know how he got in the dark forest that was surrounding him, but he knew that dark, spooky trees were nothing to laugh at, no matter how many times Pinky said it was okay to giggle at the ghosties. Terrified out of his mind, he broke into a run in an attempt to escape from the place, but it didn't take him long for him to crash into something. He fell hard onto the ground, wincing in pain as he closed his eyes from it. Ow! Watch where you're going! Wait a sec. I know that voice, Chaotic thought. Red, is that you? Chaotic quickly opened his eyes to see a familiar Pegasus before him, whom looked at him with a surprised expression as well. Chaotic? What are you doing here? I don't know. One moment I was in bed sleeping. The next thing I know, I found myself here. So, is this a dream? Red pinched himself a bit to make sure he was asleep. He winced a little bit, but Red showed no signs of any other change. I don't get it. I'm not waking up. Do you think we're trapped here? No, we can't be trapped in here. I don't want to be here. Chaotic quickly pinched himself in a desperate attempt to escape from the grim forest, but all it resulted in was pain. Ow! Okay, so maybe that wasn't the best idea. So, what are we supposed to do now? We can't just... Red cut off from what he was about to say as he looked past Chaotic. The pupils of his eyes shrunk dangerously, and his breathing quickly shortened into panicked bursts. What is it, Red? Chaotic asked, scared to find out what was apparently behind him. Don't turn around, Chaotic. When I say run, run. Chaotic, his fear turning his mind to mush, made a move to peer at what was behind him. Why? What's behind my... Oh, my Luna! The unicorn quickly scrambled away from the menacing monster that was before him, desperate to get as much distance as he could from the horrid thing. You're not supposed to be here. You're not real. The infamous, tall, white being in the dark suit that was in front of him was Slendermane. Chaotic was never one to believe in creepy straw myths, but it never did stop from implanting those fears into his mind. And here was the most intimidating of them all, speaking only silence to the pair as he slowly edged towards them in small steps. Dark tentacles then slowly rose out from underneath Slendermane's coat, slithering towards the two fearful stallions. Things were not looking good for them. Dude, I think he's real enough. Red grabbed Chaotic with the barrel and carried him over his back. We should get out of here. He made a turn around, only to be met by Slendermane's pale, blank face staring at them. Together, they both let out a terrified scream before Red could make a dash in another direction, carrying Chaotic on his back still. They didn't care where they went, as long as it wasn't towards that unnaturally tall figure. Slendermane didn't make a move to chase after them, and only stood there, watching them run with their tails between their legs. He then let out an unearthly, echoing chuckle, pleased by the enjoyable show the two stallions were giving him. Soon after the stallions were far enough away, a slim, night blue alicorn revealed herself from the tree she was hiding in. I assume you enjoyed that? Of course, Princess. I always found enjoyment in scaring the mortal minds of your ponies. Slendermane's tentacles retracted back into his body. He considered it to be impolite to have them out during a civil conversation, especially if it was with an old friend. Consider it to be repayment for the favor you did me before. Creating the Everfree Forest, for me, was wonderful. Of course, Luna giggled. Why did you think I called you here? Well now, I assume it would be for this. He quietly laughed along. Say, you haven't contacted me ever since I got back. You knew I was released from the moon a few years ago. Well, Luna, there is this thing, Slendermane said in an awkward tone, hinting at how embarrassing it was. The Everfree Forest doesn't exactly have the best sort of reputations, so I was forced to wait for you to find me first. Plus, Slendermane let out a few light coughs from his non-existent mouth. I would gather a lot of unwanted attention from the ponies if I were to waltz out of my home. It's best that I stay as a figment of their imagination rather than be perceived as a true threat. And that's no excuse, Slendy. It's very rude to keep a mare waiting, you know, Luna teased, cutely sticking her tongue out a little. The sharply dressed, scary, immortal abomination deeply groaned, feeling a little bit ashamed. He was always known as the most gentle Coltley among his peers back then. Sorry, I know. Luna giggled a bit at Slendermane's little discomfort. Don't sweat it, Slendy. I'm not angry at you. And by the way, I want to thank you for covering my job for 1,000 years. It wasn't exactly the easiest for me to continue governing the dream world alone from all the way to the moon. It was my pleasure to help, although I suppose that means you owe me a favor as well, Slendermane chuckled. Don't push your luck, Luna smirked. You know you are more than happy to have some more control over the dream world, spreading around those nightmares than there should be. Hey, It's not like it was my fault that fears are so delicious to me. I couldn't help but indulge myself. Besides, ponies could always use a little more caution in their steps. Whatever. Luna laughed again. She looked towards the direction of where the stallions were running. She could distinctly hear them yelling out to look for pages. So how long are you going to keep them here? Until I have my full, of course. It won't be long. Fear from a stallion is the most delicious and filling, since they don't normally show that when they're awake. Slendermane's body slowly started to disappear into a cloud of smoke. Catch you later. Slendermane in his smoke form then trailed after the two stallions to absorb more of their appetizing, terrified emotions. Luna looked on after her friend for a few moments more before stretching out her limbs. She was still getting used to the dream walking, so she had to stretch her muscles out every once in a while to rid herself of the occasional numb feelings. She then opened a portal that would lead to the next pony she had on her mind. I wonder if Derpy is having those muffin dreams again. She always did like her pastries.